Hello, America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck program and to The Blaze. This is going to be a dynamic show tonight. Let's start with the president. First glance, the 23 executive orders announced by the president yesterday seemed harmless enough. Many dismissed the orders as an attempt to score political points, but if we've learned anything about progressives over the past few years, it's that they are never what they seem. Take a closer look at these and it becomes very clear that they are laying the foundation for future action. You can get my complete breakdown of the 23 new executive orders by going to theblaze.com/TV and watching today's radio program. But let me give you just a quick summary here. Some of these things in this are disturbingly vague. The president, I love this one, will direct the Attorney General to review the laws governing who is prohibited from having guns and make legislative and executive recommendations to ensure dangerous people aren't slipping through the cracks. What does that mean? Well, let me explain. That Eric Holder is going to determine if you're fit to own a gun. Black Panthers, you are totally set. Tea Partiers, now Tea Partiers are different because you're dangerous. How do I know? How does Eric Holder know? Don't you remember? The police in Missouri, right here, they labeled Tea Partiers and people who voted for Ron Paul as part of a militia, and they were dangerous. So if you voted for Ron Paul, you're part of a Tea Party, good luck. They've also, in these executive orders, now dragged doctors into the mix, urging them to ask their patients how many guns they own and what types of guns do you own. Then there's a follow-up order that makes sure that HIPAA doesn't block the government from accessing that information. Quote, some states have cited concerns about restrictions under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act as a reason not to share relevant information on people prohibited from gun ownership for mental health reasons. Really? The administration will begin the regulatory process to remove any needless barriers, starting by gathering information about the scope and the extent of the problem. Wow, I thought HIPAA has needless barriers in it? HIPAA was meant to protect you. And the president just tore down that layer of protection. Several of the actions are related to mental health, including starting, quote, a national dialogue about mental illness. And it's led by Kathleen Sebelius. So if anybody knows anything about being crazy, it's her. Given the way the media treats conservatives like Sarah Palin or me or really anybody who's conservative, how long before being severely conservative is a clinical diagnosis that makes you dangerous and therefore not allowed to own a gun? How long? Well, to figure that out, we'd have to have a time machine and go back in time because it's already here. Low-effort thought promotes political conservatism. They are laying the foundation and overwhelming the system with regulations. And you're not going to be able to keep up with it. The media can't keep up with it. They can't even keep up with it. They can't even keep up with the Notre Dame linebacker hoax. This guy inspired the nation when he played football despite losing his girlfriend to leukemia. Watch.
Lost everything. And I cried, I yelled. I've never felt that way before. And this is 6 hours ago. I just found out Grandma passed away, and you take, the love of my life. Last thing she said to me was, I love you. And that was it.
Wow. Powerful story. The only problem is not true. Not even close to true. None of it. Girlfriend doesn't exist. There was no devastating car accident or leukemia. There was no funeral. There was no phone call. There was no, oh, I love you. None of that. The Associated Press, the New York Times, CBS Evening News all reported without checking a single fact. They ran with pictures of the girl who, gosh, were stolen from somebody else's Facebook account. The AP, Associated Press, even reported on the girlfriend's funeral in Carson City, California. Except there is no Carson City, California. There was no funeral in that fictitious town. It didn't take place. Not one media outlet tried to interview this woman's family. She's at the center of a media frenzy and no one reaches out. The girlfriend of a Heisman Trophy candidate who's 22 and dying of a horrible disease that she found out about after she had been in a horrible car accident, was in a coma, wakes up only to have the doctor say, "You've got cancer." She got 0 emails from the media. How about a Google search? Did they try that one? The problem with this is something I warned you about when I was at CNN. News is ingested, and I learned that on the first day at CNN, and I thought that sounded like an awful thing. And they explained how the news works. It's ingested in, and then it's built in layers. So what it means is, if it's ingested into the system, it's an accepted fact, because everyone around the globe works off of that. Everybody builds their stories off of that one story. First story comes in, then everybody says, "Oh, what happened on that story again? I got to update it." They pull up that story, and so it's built in layers. If this story or any story along the way is wrong, it's wrong forever. The media is lazy, and we have gone to sleep when the exact opposite should be happening. And here's why. The singularity. Technology is growing at such an unbelievably rapid rate that we need to be more vigilant than ever before, because we are approaching something no one has ever seen before, the singularity. For the non-geeks in the audience, which is pretty much everybody but me, the singularity is a technological boom so big and so fast that in an instant, we have machines that are smarter than we are. The virtual world already meshes with the real world. In 20 years, it will be impossible to discern between the two. I said 15 years ago to Stu, my producer, "You're not going to be able to believe your eyes anymore, because they'll be able to do digital enhancements on photography that you won't know if that picture was really taken or not." About that same time, I had a conversation with my dad 15 years ago. He said, "Boy, I don't envy you." He said, "I'm glad I'm at the end of my life, not at the beginning, because you guys are going to have to deal with things I can't even imagine." I asked him what he meant. He said, "Glenn, have you noticed the stunning advancements that have been made just in your lifetime?" He said, "Let's go back to the time of Jesus and look at the advancements that have been made. Wouldn't you say that they are incredible, right?" Now, would you make the same claim if you go back to the time of Jesus and look at the process and the progress that you've made with ethics and philosophy and theology? Have you made anywhere near the advancement as human beings as you've had in technology? The answer is not even close. If anything, we might have even gone backwards in some regards. I want to show you augmented reality demonstration. I was amazed by this. I was watching this the other day. We were doing some stuff for the Dream Labs, and I'm reviewing a bunch of stuff, and we're looking at this augmented technology. This is being pioneered, I think it's by Nintendo. That car, by the way, that Humvee, doesn't really exist. In fact, neither do anything on the table. All the stuff on the table doesn't exist. And he's about to drop this down on the table now, and everybody in the room can see it. You don't need glasses or anything else, and it drives around. Pretty amazing. But then I'm watching this, and then my eyes kind of drift down, and I see demo 2004. This technology is almost 10 years old. Today, we have access to endless amounts of information through our smartphone. Our smartphone is an amazing piece of technology. Do you remember just a few years ago when you were like, and you touched the screen? Now nobody thinks that's a big deal. But what if your smartphone wasn't a bunch of wires and stuff that you would drop and, it'd open up or whatever? What if your smartphone was only a piece of glass? In the not so distant future, we will see this technology from Corning. That's not a smartphone, that's just a Corning piece of glass. Watch this. It's not all this does, this piece of glass. You can set it down on any glass countertop or any glass table, and Corning glass will now make that into your television, and so much more. It's just a piece of glass. Very soon, you'll also be able to upload information into your brain. You'll be able to download an app and upload that information into yourself. This isn't me saying it. It's not some crazy guy that you've never heard of. This is Ray Kurzweil. This is the guy mapping the brain for Google. They're not an internet search engine. They're creating human intelligence. He is the head of their artificial intelligence division. We've had him on the program just a few weeks ago. He believes that in the next 15 years, you'll be able to upload things into you. And if that sounds crazy to you, then you must have forgotten where we've come from. Remember, he's talking about doing this in just a few years. Do you remember this? The Apple? The Macintosh? This is an Apple IIe. I think I had one of these in the 1980s. The floppy disk that went with it. This was outdated, and they stopped production in 1994. 1994, Bill Clinton was in office. But all of this technology, the way to listen to your music, the floppy disk, the movie camera, remember the big cell phone they used to have? The rotary phone, the IBM Selectric, all of this is just the beginning of what's in this. If I would have told you 20 years ago that just in a few years, all of this will be in the palm of your hand. And not only that, we don't even have a television on here. And in fact, it's not going to be the television set as you know it. It's going to be high definition, where you'll be able to see every, and believe me, I know this, every imperfection in somebody's face. And you'll be able to not only do that, you'll be able to talk to people face to face in real time, anywhere on the planet. That's what it's going to be like. Do you remember standing around the computer like this and waiting for it to print a picture like this? Dot matrix. Oh, and by the way, that's not all. You'll also be spending hours and hours and hours a day on this. And it'll wake you up, and you'll do all your banking on it, and all of your books will be on it, and your CDs and your movies and your games. You'd be laughed out of the room if I would have told you when this was in fashion. You have to ask why. Because the people who would have laughed you out of the room had already witnessed things in their lifetime that they never thought they would ever see. Now it's no big deal to go to the moon. But the people who were using this and were laughing generally grew up thinking you'd never be able to go to the moon. People can understand that technology is changing, but what they can't generally internalize is how fast and how rapid and how amazing that change will be. Remember, we went from fire to an Edison light bulb in about 5,000 years. We went from the light bulb to the moonshot in less than 100. We went from this to this in what, 10 years? The computer that NASA used for that moonshot was the size of this studio. We went from that to this in 30 years. The point here is technology is not linear, and this is really important for you to understand. That's to say that the last 100 years, you can't look at and say, boy, if we have another 100 years of progress like that, you won't. Technology grows exponentially. So during the next 100 years, we actually will see thousands of years worth of advancements. It's called the law of accelerating returns, and let me explain it this way. There's a legend about the Chinese emperor, and he met with the guy who invented chess. And he said, I gotta thank you for this. This is amazing. And he said, not a problem. He said, name the gift, any gift you want, any reward for bringing me this. And he said, oh, okay. Well, it's really easy. Just give me 1 grain of rice to be doubled in each square of the chessboard. That's it. That's only 63 doublings, right? Well, I don't have any rice, but I do have vats of M&Ms here, as you can probably tell, and I'm a little rumbly in my tumbly. So, what it means, the emperor had to put 1 grain of rice there. The next square is 2. But the next square is 4. The next one is 8. Then after that, you go to 16. Then you go to 32. You see how this is ending? Then 64. It still seems like a pretty good deal. until you start to get up to 128, then 256, then 512, then 1,024, then 2,048, then 4,096. By the time it reaches the halfway point, you are now into the billions. The halfway point is exactly when the emperor said, "I'm out." 2.1 billion when you reach the middle. When you reach the last square, you have a whopping 18 million trillion M&Ms, or, as I like to call it, heaven. When it comes to computer technology, experts now estimate that we are now standing in the middle. This is about where the emperor said, "Too much, can't do it." We've had 32 doublings of performance since the first computers were made back in 1940. And we've only completed half of the board. Remember, the very next square, the very next step on the board, is the doubling of technology from where we are now, and the time between the squares is exactly the same. It's doubling each time. Soon, we will hit the point where computers design themselves. We haven't hit that yet, but we're close. But right now, what we've hit, and this is nothing, they just do exactly what we say. Siri, find a Domino's pizza, please.
I found 5 restaurants matching Domino's fairly close to you. I've sorted them by distance.
Thank you. Spooky. Convenient, though, right? When I was talking to Ray Kurzweil while we were up in New York, Ray Kurzweil said Siri is nothing. He said very soon, Glenn, maybe in the next 5 years, he thought it could be even sooner, computers will read your thoughts. I said, how is a computer going to read your thoughts? He said it will read everything that you read. It will see every website. It will see every picture. It will read every letter that you write, every outgoing and ingoing email, every text message. It will learn from you and learn who you are. And someday you'll get up in the morning and you'll be thinking about something and it will say, I've been thinking about something. Have you thought about this? I've booked a couple of trips for you because I think you should go here and see this. It'll be your pal. Soon after that, computers surpass us in intelligence. And that is the point of singularity. And that is what we will focus on tonight. I want you to understand, it's nothing to fear as long as we are in control. There is nothing stopping it. Government would have to take away all of the technology for this trend to reverse or stop. And you cannot do that, as we will demonstrate tonight. Besides, I mean, the president would, if he decides, I'm going to run for a third and fourth and maybe fifth term, then maybe he could take out the technology in the United States, but you will never, ever, ever stop it. The world is on a path that even dictators won't be able to understand, and you will see why in a few minutes. The answer is not, should not, and cannot be regulation. The answer is not anti-technology. The answer is to be strong in ethics and community and decency, to control it, and to know that you're about to be overwhelmed by what you're going to see in just the next few years. The answer is to know your why, and it better be a lot stronger than the why we have today. This technology advancement is going to go so fast that the government will not be able to keep up with it. If they're worried about high-capacity magazines, which we are today, high-capacity magazines, geez, these have to be banned. Then you actually have to worry about a 3D printer, because this is a high-capacity magazine that was printed on a 3D printer. This machine will make them. You can own this machine in your home. Now, by the time Congress would get legislation through to ban this technology, doing it already, will be outdated. The only safeguard you have is divine providence, the Tower of Babel, our Constitution, and our principles and our values. John Adams said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people," because he knew that a free society would melt down in your pocket and in your hand if we were not moral and religious. And for once, progressives are right. The founders could not have seen the future because most of us cannot even envision the future. Some of our greatest scientists cannot envision the future. But I contend, worse than the founders, the lawmakers of today and 99% of the rest of the people on planet Earth cannot envision it because what is coming has never been seen before in the history of all mankind. Many of our founders were inventors, profound inventors themselves. They knew there would be great technological advancements. They weren't stuck in 1791. They knew we'd see improved weapons because they saw improved weapons in their lifetimes. Progressives aren't arguing against the Constitution because it's outdated. It's because it is successfully standing in the way of their agenda. They want to ban guns like they do in England, and our Constitution makes that impossible. So they have to discredit the Constitution and the founding. I don't mind powerful tools that come out of the technology boom being in the hands of you, the people. It's big government that worries me. We are going to have to deal with health, social, spiritual, society questions that we have not even ever considered. No man ever has. Once Siri becomes smarter than you, the argument will be made that she is alive. You will not be able to tell the difference between her and someone else who is alive and has a soul. What happens? I told you about this printing machine last week. We printed a few things on the air. And I pondered to myself on the air, you know what, if we can do this, why can't we just take and have a couple of lines here of chemicals run in? Why can't I make my own drugs? Why can't I make my own Claritin right at home? I should be able to print that. And if you can do that, why can't you just make crack on a digital printer? I mean, it's really only a chemical formula. Why can't it just put the chemicals together and make it? Well, what I didn't think of and why I have surrounded myself with really good tech advisors as of late in the American Dream Labs, I got a note from one of our advisors in the Dream Labs, and he said, drugs? No big deal. Forget about that. In fact, Glenn, forget about genetically modified food. Soon, this will print meat. Print meat? Technological advancements, the singularity. Do you remember the awful pink slime? That's meat. That's meat. And we were all like, that's not meat. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is. We're not far away. Double the technology, and we're at stake. That's not science fiction, it's science fact. According to our Dream Lab tech advisors, within 5 years, a new digital frontier is coming. And we have to be aware of it. And the only way to survive is to tame ourselves first. Self-governance. Tonight, the singularity. I'm going to introduce you to Cody Wilson. He has been called one of the most dangerous men on earth, and he is the founder of Defense Distributed, the nonprofit group that launched the Wiki Weapon Project, initiative to raise $20,000 to design and release a plastic gun that anyone can print from their own computer. It would be distributed for free. It would allow anyone who wanted a gun to get one just by hitting print. I will tell you that I said last week that we are going to come to a place where people are going to print guns. And people on my own staff said, not going to do that. Really? Here they are, all printed by a 3D printer and the magazines. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
You can't print the whole gun because it's illegal.
That's right. That's right. It's actually legal 2 different ways under Title 18 to make undetectable firearms or weapons that would not be regulated by Title I.
Okay, but you can actually, you could fire this.
I have fired that.
You have fired
That's
that.
right, yeah.
Okay.
And I've fired all these pieces as well.
You made all of this yourself, or
The trigger group
this?
is a standard trigger group we fit in just to show that our pieces were right, our measurements were right. The white piece is the printed piece.
Now, here's what I mean. This is both exciting and frightening because every dynamic on planet Earth changes. You know, it's frightening because Occupy Wall Street could take over the world. It's wonderful because the Holocaust wouldn't have happened. I mean, it just depends on how you decide to use them, which is meaning we have to be in control of ourselves. Because if they try to, and they will, they've stopped you from making a gun, right? You're not going to make the whole gun.
I've been disciplined from not making it, but I'm going to make it. You know, it's just a matter of following their law. Okay,
so you'll do it the right way. Is there any doubt in your mind that those who are nefarious, who have the same, you'll make anything? Why go buy and smuggle your guns through Eric Holder when you can just print them?
Well, if Eric Holder is giving away M16s for free, I'll take his M16.
Right.
But right, this does add some questions and some complexity to things. Undetectable firearms, unknown firearms in commerce, assembled out of parts that aren't registered. There are new dimensions and new folds, new moral problems.
Okay, any way to put the genie back in the bottle?
No, I'll show you. This magazine, for example, right, was just one file 2 days ago. Now it's been downloaded over 50,000 times. You know, the internet has it. And as long as these machines keep getting better, this is no longer bannable in some traditional sense, in some progressive sense of controlling.
So in other words, they can ban it all they want, but somebody is just going to print it. And this was all just printed on a 3D printer.
That's right, an SLA from the 90s. It's an old technology was used to create that. You know, I don't have
the first time I ever saw this,
stuff.
I was in Jay Leno's garage. Oh, yeah. And he had a Stanley steamer, and he said, "Do you know what it's like to get a cog for a Stanley steamer?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Until this machine, you couldn't get it." And he showed me, and it was as big as a huge refrigerator. And he said, "Yeah, we just put the broken piece in there, and it scans it, and then it just makes it."
That's right.
And I thought that was amazing. And I own that one. I mean, and that's like a little, that's just like a little one that is $2,000. These replicators, to make this, how much would the replicator cost?
Oh, a replicator making that?
Yeah.
We haven't made one on a replicator, but the volume under 50.
How did you make this?
Under $50.
In a 3D printer?
Yeah, we made it in an SLA 3D printer, which uses a little bit different technology.
Which is what?
This was made with a laser and a UV resin.
And that's when they come together, when the lasers hit?
Yeah, more or less. There's two different technologies, not to get too complicated, but it cures a resin, and the resin hardens very quickly. And, you're done in about 9 hours.
How much did it cost you?
About $100 in materials.
And how much does the actual printer or the machine cost you?
Multiple thousands of dollars, but demand will drive prices down. It's just a matter of time and what technology the market prefers.
What is the thing that, do you have any concerns at all about this technology?
Well, we're doing this project and using this technology as a form of resistance. So it's just a critical use of the technology. Of course, we have concerns at the end of the day, right? But we see liberty under threat. We see sovereignty under threat. We must respond.
So they try to take this, they can't take this away because everything, the technology is out and everything is being mapped. And you just really do, it was shocking to me, all you really do is hit print.
That's right. You
download it and you hit print.
This is an alternative way of manufacturing things, and it really takes out almost all expert required knowledge. The model is already in software, you can download it. If you have a machine, you just tell the machine to make it, then you have it. It's that simple. Okay, so America, here's your decision point. Your decision point is, is this guy a hero or a villain? That's a good question.
What do you think you are?
I don't like the dichotomy, right? In whose conception, under what paradigm? I'm just resisting. What am I resisting? I don't know. The collectivization of manufacture, the institutionalization of the human psyche. I'm not sure. But I can tell you one thing. This is a symbol of reversibility. They can never eradicate the gun from the earth.
I'm big into whys. I know why I do everything.
Yeah.
And that's where we connect. is on why. So I don't think I buy your BS on what you just said to me on why. Well, I'm this or I'm that. I don't know. Yes, you do. Why do you do it?
I do it because I decided process isn't the way to preserve liberty. I don't believe in
What
Romney.
does that mean?
I don't believe in Romney versus Obama. You know, I believe in real politics. That's a real political act, giving you a magazine, telling you that that will never be taken away. That wasn't true maybe 2 weeks ago. Now it's a fact of life. It's a fact of history. You know, that's real politics. That's radical equality. That's what I believe in.
Are you concerned at all? See, these are the debates we're going to have, America. Are you concerned at all about things like, and the gun is somewhat different because this is the great equalizer, if you will. You know, whoever had the gun manufacturers, whoever controls the gun manufacturers would win until this. Okay. However, just like the music industry and the movie industry, if you can copy things, then somebody who designed this, somebody who spent money and time and effort to design it, you're taking it from them. What happens to the patent? Is that?
I designed that. That was my property and I gave it away, if we accept that conception of things. So, you know, you're welcome. But
wait. You didn't, because you didn't, somebody else designed.
The magazine is our design.
It's your design.
Defense Distributors' design.
Okay.
Our proprietary design. This was an old, you know, the AR lower design has been out in the wild for years. It's a mil-spec kind of design. It's not any one person's, although Eugene Stoner is celebrated as the
So would you agree that patents are important or not?
Oh, okay, down the road. Yeah, intellectual property is an interesting debate, and I fall on both sides of it. So I see an interest in preserving illegal monopolies sometimes for people to...
It's what made America America.
It makes some sense. And at the same time, I'm partial to the debate of kind of the anarchist left, which is that really these state monopolies allow undue profits.
Okay. So are you an anarchist?
I guess in a functional sense, sure, but perhaps like a principled one.
I don't know what that means.
Well, there's a guy named Michel Foucault, and I'd recommend that you read him sometime. Really, I see the battle as one of just trying to remain human and against, you know, massive forces, anonymous forces of discipline and control that we can't really understand. I don't think there's a massive conspiracy, but I do think the self is under siege, and I think liberty itself is under siege. Human liberty, human spontaneity, the freedom to do things.
I would agree with you. But if it devolves into either chaos or totalitarianism, you've lost it all.
I think there are different visions of what totalitarianism is. It seems to me the progressives and the conservatives are both lined up against a strong state authoritarianism either way. Either that's a socialized collective vision or a more kind of police. Well, either way.
Yeah.
Both seem to me to be the authors of an increasing surveillance and police state. I don't agree with that.
Have you read much about the Articles of Confederation and okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, there is a point in liberty that even the most libertarian or close to anarchist member of our founders understood you have to have some
state power?
You have to have some power just to hold things together, limited as possible.
I like the argument. And I'm partial to it, and I like the founders, you know, but I think, I never want to say this time it's different. That's a kind of progressive argument, you know, but
Cody, you are I don't know if we are friend or foe.
Yeah.
I appreciate the debate, and I appreciate the idea that man will be free. Man will be free, because this is not going to stop. They could put you in jail and it wouldn't matter. This isn't going to stop.
It's over, yeah.
Thank you. Back in a minute.
We should find out if we're friends or foes.
I have a feeling we are, this is going to be an interesting ride over the next year on technology. Another pioneer in the technology of 3D printing, and one of the only minds who understands and is thinking about these things in a, I think in a very useful way. He has a new book out, first to address some of these things. and will be a valuable source for our future, is Hod Lipson. He's got a book, Fabricated 3D Printing, The Promise and Peril of a Machine That Can Make Almost Anything. Welcome. How are you, sir?
Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. Did you see the last segment?
Yeah.
Okay, so Cody is printing gun parts, which is a good thing and can be a bad thing. And you kind of talk about it in your book. You know, talk about a novel where people, the 3D printer is like an inkjet. Everybody's got one, and at first, right, they do great things, and then it goes ugly.
So Cory Doctorow wrote in his novel about these two sides of this technology, and he beautifully essentially displayed the two sides, the promise and the peril. The fact that on one hand, it unleashes a huge amount of creativity. You can do things you couldn't do before. On the other hand, it opens up some new possibilities, and in the end, it's where people take the technology.
And there is no way to stop this. I don't think we should, but there's also no way to stop it.
It's very much like computers. Computers, you can do good things, you can do bad things. They've done good and bad. By far, they've done more good than bad, but it's the same kind of powerful technology, I think.
The printing of meat, I mean, that's real, right?
We've done, that's one of printing food is one of the things that kind of took us by surprise.
It sound good or good for you?
Well, if you look at printed pastries, for example, and chocolate and things like that, it's probably not good for you, but it's
Okay,
pretty good. It's pretty good.
Okay, so show me what you have, because these things are printed.
Yeah, so these are just examples. We tend to focus in the media on plastic printing, but really it's important to understand you can print in stainless steel. This is a piece of a gas turbine.
You printed this?
This is we didn't print it ourselves, but this is on a commercial stainless steel printer made by EOS. This is a titanium part.
Manufacturing and machining is no longer necessary.
Exactly. I think well, it's definitely heading that way. This is a titanium nose implant, and for real implant, and there's just no way to make something like this. It doesn't replace an existing technique. It's a new thing.
Unbelievable.
This is another example of something that this is a 3D printed ceramic cuneiform, a 3,000-year-old tablet, discovered, scanned, replicated, printed. It feels, it weighs, it has the same texture as the original.
How are you going to know what the real is and what's not?
Well, the experts can tell, but in terms of faxing things around...
Will I be able to print a diamond?
That's probably going to be very difficult because of the material, not because of the shape.
And what is that?
This is a robot component that we made in the lab, and what's interesting about this, it works, it's made out of multiple materials, and it's all printed in one shot. So the whole thing working.
You come in and clean it up. Do you even have to clean it up?
Just a little bit. It kind of washes off with water, so there's not a lot.
Oh my gosh! It comes out like this,
and you rinse it off, and it works. So that's this technology is really moving away from just printing parts and a shower curtain ring to things that work.
How long before everybody has this?
I think it's going to be less than a decade before people have access to this.
And what then happens to patents?
Well, that's one of the interesting things that Cory Doctorow talks about, and it's one of these. It's a little bit like music. So what happened to music when people could download music and play it anywhere? Good things and bad things happen. On one hand, a lot of people could unleash their creative talent and get that distributed quickly. On the other hand, there were some skirmishes around intellectual property, and somehow it settled in this kind of digital right management combined with reasonable pricing, and it's sort of settled somewhere in the middle.
So the problem with this is, and let's take a break here, but the problem with this is people who have control now are not going to have control in the same way that they have. Do you understand what I mean? Everything, at least the way I look at the world, and this is what a lot of the strife is coming from, that people don't really understand, I think, is people are trying to hang on to what they have, You're not going to have,
No,
none of it.
it's not going to be centralized anymore.
Right, none of it is.
Right.
And when we come back, I want to ask you about how do you govern on with this kind of tech, with what we know is coming, the trap that we're in, and how we avoid the traps. Back in a minute. Do you know who Penn Jillette is?
No.
Okay, Penn Jillette is just a brilliant guy. You don't usually follow that with, he's a magician in Vegas, but he's absolutely brilliant. And he believes that the future is very, very bright because you cannot put things back in a bottle. Men will be free. And he thinks that it's a totally different world that is on the horizon. And I agree with him. However, you know who Ray Kurzweil is? Okay, so Ray says to me a few weeks ago, I said, if Google can come up with a computer that's even in me eventually, that is monitoring everything I do, helping me, and it knows me so well, it knows what my next step is. If I'm somebody who wants to put Google out of business, how would Google ever want to help me? Why don't they thwart that? And he said, well, they won't. That's not a good enough answer for me. The other side of it is they get big enough to where then they start to ask for regulation, and they partner with the people in power now who also want to keep their power. How does this not become a repressive situation?
They try to repress, but it doesn't work. And I think there's plenty of examples. I mean, you can just look at Facebook, okay, rising from nowhere and suddenly becoming the same scale as Google. And it's not that Google couldn't do it, but they can't stop it, and they're competing now. And what happens is, as these opportunities open up, there's small things can rise very quickly. You have people who can write software applications that will very quickly spread and take over. It's much harder to stop these things. And the same thing is going to happen now also with physical objects. It's already happened with software. You have companies that come out of nowhere and become huge companies in the software area. The same thing is now going to be able to happen with physical things.
What does government look like in 20 years from now?
I think it will need to be a lot more technology savvy. I don't think you can control or even regulate any of this by just putting laws out and just
laws will be outdated by the time they're passed.
It's law doesn't keep up with the technology, but technology itself can sometimes help with these things, and I think that that might be a solution.
I don't know what that means yet. That could be a very good thing or a very bad thing.
That's right. It's very open-ended. We don't know where technology is going, either in what it can do and how it can regulate.
Are you a religious man or a spiritual man at all?
No.
Okay. The story of the Bible Tower of Babel,
yeah. God
destroys it, but he's the good God. He's not the angry God, it's the happy side of God. And he does it because he says, if they can do this, they can do anything. Did any side of you ever say, we're approaching some place that is wonderful and absolutely terrifying because we could just destroy ourselves?
You know, the technology is very powerful. I think I'm a kind of techno-utopian in the sense that I think, yes, technology can open up a lot of these hazards, but really the good things that we can do with this far will outpace.
I hope we can talk again. We're out of time. I hope we can talk again. More on this as we continue the year on technology and the decisions that we face right in front of us. Back in a minute. Oh, yes. Technology is great. We'll see you tomorrow for Ask Glenn Anything, and then on Monday, the Misfits Ball. From Dallas, good night, America. Send him an angel.